This is the Critical Conversations podcast, a KPOV special project developed to feature unique perspectives and the courage it takes to go there, challenge mundane thought, and question the norm.
We're very excited to be joined here by Juniper Rook from Redmond Proficiency Academy. She's done some incredible activism, starting from the age of 12, the first time she called and was interviewed on the Tuesday Point after the Stoneman Douglas tragic shooting, and she's been a great activist ever since. We just had her on a couple of months ago about a student walkout in Redmond. Juniper, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
I wanted to start, if it's okay, with the activism that you started with the Stoneman Douglas shooting, because that was the first time we communicated.
Yeah.
What moved you to get started as an activist after that?
I mean, I feel like being a super young person in that kind of area, it's hard to see how easily things can affect you. But being a student, obviously gun violence is something that's easily thought about. And being even in middle school and knowing that it's a possibility as a 12-year-old is scary, and that kind of fear just pushed me enough to want to do something about it.
And so you called us and we did an interview, which I really enjoyed. I'm assuming you did too.
Yeah.
And got on the air. So, and that was a walkout you were organizing back then.
Yeah.
How was the experience as a young student organizing a student walkout?
I mean, it was hard. I did it mostly by myself, obviously with the help of my mom, but it was really hard to just, know what to do. I had to get a lot of help from the people around me, and also just no one really expected it. And it was hard seeing people who didn't agree with it and the way I was treated because of it, but it was also nice seeing all the people that agreed with me. So it was kind of like a double-sided coin.
Yeah. And did you have a pretty good group that walked out?
Yeah, I think we had 30 or 40 kids, and it was mostly older kids, but yeah, we had a lot of people walk out. All
right, that sounds great. And so we fast forward. Well, the next time we talked was a couple of months ago about the walkout, another walkout over gun safety and school safety. Was there any activism between those two times? We had a few years there.
Yeah, actually, I took part in co-organizing a Stop Asian Hate rally in March of 2021 after all of the, Asian violence that was happening. And we actually had a rally on the Peace Corner, and we had Phil Chang come and speak, and we had donations, and we ended up being able to donate over $100 to the Stop Asian Hate organization. And that's probably one of the most, the biggest thing I did in between the two walkouts.
When you say the Peace Corner, what is the Peace Corner?
The Peace Corner is the corner, I think it's on Wall Street, the four-way intersection that most of the rallies happen at.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Just wanted to, for people who might not know, the Peace Corner is on Wall, and I think it's Newport.
Yeah, I think it's Newport, yeah.
Where the Bank of America is and the fountain.
Yeah.
Commonly known as the Peace Corner. Those are your two, those two, and then let's move forward to the walkout you organized just a couple of months ago. Yeah.
So I feel like it honestly was not my idea to do the walkout, but another student, Isabel Richards, brought it to me. And I had mentioned that I had a past with, doing walkouts to protest gun violence, and I had helped in the past with other things like that. And she brought the idea, and we got some other kids involved from our Saga group, and we ended up just putting it on. We waited till after winter break because, thinking about it, because of the Michigan shooting, we decided to do this, and we wanted to wait because people would forget about it. We almost always forget about school shootings, and so we decided to wait a month or two and then do it after that. Just keep the ball rolling, keep people talking about it, and keep the media attention on gun violence.
And weren't there some bills in the legislature that you were trying to were part of the walkout?
Yeah, one of them was Keeping Gun Dealers Honest Act of 2021, and the other one was Prosecuting Gun Crime Saves Lives Act, and they were both House bills. And we had a letter writing campaign while at the walkout, and we ended up getting signatures and sent them off to Suzanne Bonamici, Cliff Benz, and a few other of our legislators to help get the bill passed. Both of the bills passed.
And were they passed?
I honestly have no idea. I haven't heard anything back from any of the people we sent letters to. It's kind of just been radio silence.
Okay.
We haven't heard from a lot of people that we've tried to communicate with other than KPOV.
Well, okay. So it's not this radio silence.
No, not this radio silence.
I know. Okay, so we can look into that. We can figure out what happened to those bills. That's something I'd be happy to research that for you. Okay, so now, if you don't mind, if we just sort of back up, right, in your life, how you became an activist, and you've told a great story about with your mom. Can you go into that? How you ended up, and we're going to get Mom on here in a minute. But how did you initially at a young age, very young age? You're still at a young age.
Yeah.
Get involved in activism.
I remember being like a very young child at the University of Oregon, making pins with my mom in between classes, and then just meeting all these people who had the exact same ideas as my mom did, and I was like, oh, these people feel the same way. These people are good people. I want to be those kinds of people. And my uncle Aaron has also been a super big role in just activism. That's been, someone I can look up to, and he's just a driving force. And being able to see my mom and my uncle both being such strong and, just amazing activists really just inspired me to do the same.
And so, Mom, Kelsey, the question I have for you, we're going to hear a little mic noise as we shuffle things around. The question, I guess, for you is, what motivated you to be an activist? That's the first question, I suppose.
Oh, sure. Well, it's kind of funny, Juniper, mentioning our kind of family history with activism. The first time I remember being very politically active, I was a little bit younger than Juniper, but it was when the U.S. invasion of Iraq happened. I was in probably 8th or 9th grade, and my mom and I went to a peace rally in my hometown, and I remained active in the anti-war space throughout probably my high school years. And then Juniper was born when I was a senior in high school. I was 2 days after my 17th birthday. She was kind of my partner in crime, being a young single parent. We kind of grew up together, and when I went to college, when I was 17, she went everywhere with me when she wasn't in daycare. And I worked at the Women's Center at the University of Oregon. I was the editor of the magazine that we produced out of the Women's Center, and was safety coordinator for a lot of our actions for Take Back the Night and things like that. So Juniper was in the offices, in the evenings, helping plan events and making buttons, like she said. We did a lot of stuff that was family focused and kid friendly. So Juniper was always welcome in those spaces, and she came along to Take Back the Night, and yeah, we just kind of started there, I guess.
Certainly better than being, kind of typically bewildered by all this at that age. It's great that you had an influence, and I wish a lot more kids had an opportunity to be a little less bewildered about all this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Bewildered, and then also inspired, which is when you said you admired these people and you wanted to be like these people.
Yeah.
And that really got me. I suppose it shows a lot of things, not just in the world of activism, but the idea of kids, you have kids, young children, recognizing that positive attitude and the positive energy and wanting to join it at some point. You obviously have a lot of passion about all this stuff. I mean, can you talk about that and how it shaped you as a person and as an activist?
I feel like, honestly, being such a young person, it's kind of like you don't have a voice ever. And it's like you're leaving all of these things up to the people in power, your legislators, all these people in higher ends of government. And just I am a very outspoken and loud person. Having the courage and just the want to be heard has always driven me to have such a passion for these kinds of things, because if no one else is going to do it, I'm going to be the one to do it. And being that kind of strong-willed personality has really just helped me just push for the things that I think should happen and the things that need to happen. And I feel like, that's kind of just one of my biggest reasons.
Does it bother you to feel alone in that activity?
I mean, not all the time. I feel like it just kind of depends. It depends on who you surround yourself with. I feel like there's been a lot of just, more quiet, like, people have just kind of given up in ways. And that makes it hard, because it's kind of like, do I just be the next one to stop? Because like I'm doing all these things. I have sports, I have school, I have this activism, thing going on. And it's like sometimes I just want to just take a break. But taking a break it feels like selfish. Because I'm like, if I take a break, then is everyone else going to take a break too? Are we all just going to take a break? Is no one going to come back and fight for it? So I feel like, it's good and it's bad. And it's definitely kind of alone sometimes because I don't really give up. I feel like I don't like losing. I'm very stubborn. And I feel like, I'm not going to give up on this. And it's hard to see other people do that.
I think it's typical of what Chris Hedges once said. He said, if all you can do is squeak, you got to squeak.
Yeah.
It's also really admirable that you're willing to keep going even when you feel like you're the only one doing it. I know that Redmond is, I don't know where you've lived other than Redmond, obviously Eugene at some point at the University of Oregon. So I don't know if you have a comparison for this, but there's another issue about doing progressive activism in a rural conservative town. All right, and I see a big nod over there. So can you speak to that a little bit?
I mean, yeah, having a different opinion from the majority is always going to be kind of weird to people. I mean, we're talking about how the way I grew up really shaped me. The way that some of these kids have grown up has really shaped them. They're growing up in a conservative household. They're not going to feel the same way that I did growing up in a college with a single mom at the Women's Center. It's going to be a different perspective. They're not going to feel the same way as I do. And you just have to honestly understand that these people are just angry because they're scared too. And you can't be mad at them because they're just saying what they've been taught. They've been taught to think this way and they don't know anything different. And when people, I get attacked online or people come up to me and do stuff like that, you just have to take it. You can't just like give them that kind of response that they want. You can't be hateful back. You just have to take it because being the person that rises above is always going to be more admirable than the person who bites back.
Yeah, I think one of the terms that I heard one of my neighbors use was reactionary. And I'm not so sure that Redmond is as much a conservative city as most people believe. I think that the reactionary people make it seem that way. But I think what we've seen most recently is there are more people in Redmond that share a lot of your views. And I'm happy to say that.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like the quiet majority, I guess you could say, but it's a hard place to live because like, can I say this thing in front of this person? Are they going to think that I'm weird because I say this or because I feel this way? But sometimes you just have to stop caring what other people are going to think about you or your activism and just do it anyways, because people are always going to have something to say about what you do, and just doing it anyways is the best thing you can do.
I think new ideas bring a reaction.
Yeah, 100%. Definitely. Especially young, new ideas.
Well, right. Because people don't just kind of assume, and this is an adult thing, and I do this for sure, that, I've been around for this long, so surely I know better than people who haven't been around this long. Now, I hardly ever think that way anymore. I've been very fortunate with the young people that I've been around in my life. But it's a really common, I think, thought pattern. And it's very admirable for you, I think, to stand up to it and be willing to keep going despite it. And look what I wrote down. Being the person who rises above is better than being the person who bites back. I don't take notes in my interviews very often. That will be used. Trust me, something I write or something I say is going to have that in it. So I thank you for that. And I'm sure all of our listeners thank you for that little piece of brilliance there. There's so many of them, but that's the one I had time to write down.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So Juniper's a great activist. She wrote a letter to the Redmond City Council that she sent to them, and we have sufficiently twisted her arm. No, not really. She wants to read it, and of course, we don't engage in physical violence at KPOV. But Juniper, we asked Juniper, and she wants to read the letter that she sent to the Redmond City Council. So take it away.
Hello, my name is Juniper. I'm 16 and a sophomore at RPA. I'm a student athlete playing sports at Redmond High School, and a contributor to this community with my constant efforts urging this council and the Redmond School Board for the changes our community needs. After the last city council meeting and the recent Facebook drama the adults sitting in front of me decided to hash out in front of the entire town, I am here to address the lack of professionalism and the lack of respect they have for those seats they are sitting in. In my famous Women in History class, I watched a video of a woman named KJ Brooks who went viral for speaking at a board meeting in Kansas City. I felt very inspired by her to speak at this meeting. If you don't know what was said in the video, she pretty much called out the lack of democracy in her area in Kansas City. So I'm here to do the same. As she stated in her comment, I'm not here to be nice and I don't wish to be respectable. I was unable to attend the last city council meeting because I had a basketball game in the Dalles and I'm unable to attend the one tonight, but either way, there are still some things I would like to address that were said at the last meeting. I am the kind of person who understands any person's right to protest, and anyone in this town or this country deserves that right, but I won't allow my peaceful protest to be compared to the protests outside of Redmond High School. At my protest, we didn't feel the need to bribe children to come up to us. There were no weapons with us. There were no grown men assaulting people. And before my protest, I met and worked with local police to make sure my protest was as safe and as peaceful as possible. So I'm asking the mayor, who downplayed and made excuses for the adults who put our safety in danger, to hold the grown adults to the same standard as he is attempting to hold me to. There is no comparison to my protest to the random adults standing on the sidewalk screaming about a mask. Masks aren't life and death, but the prevalence of gun violence in America is. The city council holds power, and people look to them for their opinions. So while you all have a little gossip session about me and my activism, you are making people think it is okay. While you continue to choose the side of irresponsible adults over the side of children who are asking for safer schools, you are allowing this behavior to continue. And you are proving you are against common sense gun reform and against safer schools. The members of this council say that they want a safer community and safer schools, but they are lying. You are sitting in that chair allowing adults to harass children while I am fighting for safer schools. We are not the same and we will never be. I honestly wasn't going to call out the unacceptable behavior this council has consistently shown week after week, but I'm not going to allow grown adults to speak poorly of me. I am a full-time student athlete with a job. I am a contributing member to this community, and I deserve respect. So when you choose to respect me in the ways I'm trying to solve the issues in this community you are overlooking, you will gain the same respect from me. I'm going to close this comment by saying we are watching. Everyone is watching as you allow the democracy in Redmond to fade, and we are all watching the dumpster fire that is this council. I am 16 years old, and I don't have the time or the energy to do all of your jobs for you. I deserve to be inspired by my city council, and as of right now, I'm embarrassed. Take this as a warning that you are being watched by everyone in this community, and if they aren't willing to hold you accountable, I'll be the one to do so. Thank you for your time.
That's Juniper Rook. KPOV is very proud to have her on the air. It's kind of an amazing moment. So Juniper is a student at Redmond Proficiency Academy, a young activist, obviously quite eloquent. And thank you for...
Yeah, of course.
Definitely understands the term democracy.
Yeah, and the ability to stand up to a group of adults like that as phenomenal, Juniper. And it raises up, and this is one of the things that we talked about. Some of the things you said were obviously like these are the things you want to see the city council do, but also the impact on you and
Yeah.
your fellow youth from their actions. And it brings me to ask about what has it been like to be a young queer activist in Redmond, and as assertive as you are, like with a letter like that.
Well, I feel like I also want to talk about why I actually sent that letter to the council.
Yes, please.
The meeting, there's 2 meetings a month. The second week and the fourth week of the month, there are Tuesdays, there are meetings. I was unable to make it because I had a basketball game or something, and the Redmond City Council decided to compare my protest to the protest that happened outside of Redmond High School. If you didn't know what that protest outside of Redmond High School was, it was basically a people's rights hangout. And
what is people's rights?
People's rights is basically like a militia group. They're not very nice people. Sorry. I was being compared to that, so I decided to set the record straight. And I had actually also recently, well, not super recently, one of the Redmond City Council members, Chrisana, had made some very transphobic comments online about South Dakota and how she was thankful that they were not allowing young women to play high school or collegiate sports because they were trans. So she never apologized for it, and I had sent her a letter, and it was put in the Bend Bulletin, and I'm honestly just kind of appalled by the fact that, you know, you can make those comments and still be on the board, and after I sent that letter, she wanted an apology, and I'm not prepared to give her one.
Well, I'm sure that was. I'm sorry. I'm a little speechless because I remember reading about that, and it was very upsetting, and remains very upsetting. And I kind of can't believe what grown-ups say sometimes. But you are a young queer activist yourself, and so how has that affected your experience, or what has your experience been like?
Well, I mean, it's obviously hard because I feel like people hear things about you that's different from what they believe in, and it's kind of like a weird thing about you, but I don't think it's very weird. And after hearing that, and also just hearing about the recent bills in Florida and the one in, I think it was Idaho and Texas, it's hard to be a young queer activist right now because of all the backlash and like, oh, you can't say you're gay, you can't play sports. It's just like, when does it end? When can kids be kids, and when can we just literally just be ourselves? And I feel like, being a young queer activist, I feel like being a woman, there's already things that people can use against me. And, sharing with people that I'm also queer is scary because I don't want that to be another reason for people to look down on me and not, help me push forward in my activism because I'm queer.
Yeah, well, right, because of who you really are.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, right? As a whole person.
Yeah.
And that's the piece. That's the piece for me that one of the reasons I wanted to ask that, because we really should. I'm going to editorialize just for a second, right? Respecting people for who they are, for all of they are, for their whole being, their whole person. Is really, I mean, that really is the way we should be. Again, I'm editorializing, running our society and living and participating in this world. And anything else is to me a failure of the heart. What are the challenges you face? Because I know you face a lot of challenges as a young activist. Can you talk a little bit about that? I mean, how do adults react to you as an activist?
I mean, it's kind of weird. I've experienced obviously some praise, but sometimes people get uncomfortable when there's a young person doing things like this. And I feel like it's usually one or the other. It's either like, oh, that's amazing, I'm so proud you're doing that. Or it's kind of like, oh, okay. I don't know. It's just, I feel like people kind of look at me differently because it's like, you're really doing this. No one else is talking about this. And I feel like it's scary to be someone talking about something like this because what if people don't listen? What if people don't care? And then it just kind of feels like a failure. And it's just like, it's hard because, you get attacked online, people say stuff, and it's just like, it's kind of just tiring, honestly. And I wish that, if I'm an activist and I'm doing these things, people could just respect that and support it or don't support it and just leave it at that. No more like, rude comments or just continuing to talk about it. Just leave it at that.
Respond to the message rather than the messenger.
Yeah,
right.
Totally.
Something along those lines.
You've been listening to a KPOV Critical Conversation. To hear more engaging interviews on important topics, please visit kpov.org/criticalconversations.